Hi guys, it's Will Barron here. So I made a post on LinkedIn the other day with an image that explained essentially the basics of what we in the sales school and salesman.org call selling anxiety. Unsurprisingly, a lot of people experience this. That post picked up a lot of steam with about 10,000 views in a couple of days. And so I thought I'd make a quick video explaining why people get selling anxiety and why it can become really crippling for these individuals. So we'll cover it in a little bit more detail. So not having sales anxiety is a trait of sales success within our own sales DNA assessment. And so it's something that I'm really focused and really interested in. So although this diagram looks like there's an awful lot of things going on, we can pretty quickly and easily explain it by just running through the loop that's happening here. So first we encounter a trigger situation. This is anything that triggers the thought process in your brain, in your mind, that leads towards the destination of anxiety. Now, once we encounter this trigger event in our external environment, so we've got our external world on this side and our internal in our brains on this side, so essentially the office and then our internal mind, our mind's eye, the conversation in our voice, all that side of things. Once we encounter this trigger event in the external environment, we start to look then internally at our beliefs and assumptions about this external event to see what it means to us. Because obviously different events mean different things to different people. So if our beliefs and assumptions processing unit, if that says this is a negative event, I don't like this, then it triggers our internal alarm. And this is where we start to first feel that experience of anxiety. So once this internal alarm starts to get triggered, we start to then look more inwardly. We start to become incredibly self-conscious. This then feeds back into the internal alarm, right? This feeds one way, this way, and then kind of feeds back the other, and we get this, what we call a flywheel of panic right here. This flywheel of panic effect is where our feelings about the environment start to spin up essentially slowly. Imagine this big heavy wheel that needs lots of energy to get going, but once it starts spinning, it gets so fast, it has so much momentum that it's very difficult to stop. Additionally, if we encounter an environmental trigger that we've felt self-conscious about in the past, well, as in we've been through this loop in a previous occasion, perhaps a week ago, a day ago, 2 minutes ago, well, this flywheel is probably still spinning from the momentum of the previous experience. So that's how it builds a momentum, it builds this energy, this force that literally could stop us doing our jobs over time. Next, as we realize that, of course, we do not like this raising self-conscious feeling of panic, we attempt to try and get rid of the momentum by essentially dissipating the energy from the flywheel by showing visible signs of anxiety or using coping behaviors. So coping behaviors could be just pretending someone is ringing you on your mobile phone so you can pretend to answer it so that you can walk out of the room and get away from the situation, for example. Additionally, we also go through the classic visible signs of selling anxiety, such as blushing. I know that I go red if I get really anxious about something and embarrassed as well. Now, if these two coping mechanisms take off some of the momentum of the flywheel, well, we feel slightly better in the moment. But as things start to cool down and we start to process all of this, it all goes back. It feeds back via this mechanism straight into our beliefs and assumptions processing unit again. So this part of our brain is then primed that when we experience this trigger, it all kicks off again in a much faster and dramatic fashion. So there we have it. That is essentially the selling anxiety system that is imprinted in all of our brains, whether we like it or not. Because this system is designed to teach you to stay away from tigers or snakes in the jungle, not to make you anxious about your sales role or your selling activities. It's been misappropriated for that just because of the lack of time we've had to evolve to become salespeople. Now, the best way to really explain this system is through a practical example, something that many salespeople avoid. They'll say that they hate doing it or that it's not effective and so I shouldn't have to do it. That thing is, of course, cold calling. So a lot of people have selling anxiety about picking up the phone to a random individual. So in the cold calling scenario, the trigger situation is the fact that we need to cold call someone, right? Perhaps our boss is stood over our shoulder, they're looking down on us to make sure that we're actually doing it, and this trigger activates a series of beliefs and assumptions within our beliefs and assumptions processing unit. It fires up beliefs that perhaps we are interrupting people, that we're not worthy of their time, that they are going to hang up as soon as we open our mouths, which is of course going to lead us to feeling rejected. Now, of course, it makes total sense. rejection and feeling bad leads to our internal alarm being triggered, and it starts ringing and bouncing away in our brains, which then of course leads us to become self-focused or self-conscious about the behaviors that we're doing or going to be doing, and we become conscious about the fact that we're going to be making a call. So this flywheel starts spinning up, right? It's spinning, it's getting bigger, it's getting more and more gnarly. It's like a hamster with Lance Armstrong levels of hormones spinning its damn wheel, and it builds up an incredible amount of velocity and momentum, right? So then to try and release some of this pressure that's built up within us, we use coping behaviors such as, and I've seen this in the field, right? Salespeople will make free calls on the phone, free brings, and they'll hang up before the person on the other end of the phone even gets a chance to pick it up. But on the statistics, it still looks like they're making lots of calls each day. Or perhaps they'll use self-sabotaging behaviors, such as calling up individuals with such terrible sales skill that they can then control the outcome of the phone call and turn it into a polite no thank you, rather than the chance of them getting rejected or even the chance of them having some success. So of course, this is a losing battle, right? And these coping behaviors make us then more self-conscious, and then the symptoms of selling anxiety increase, which starts to show visible signs of anxiety, like messing up our words on a phone call by stuttering or just not coming across as confident at all. Of course, this then leads to a poor selling result, which then feeds all the way back through the feedback loop of doom up here, feeds all the way back around, and yeah, we have a terrible sales result, which then leads our beliefs and assumptions processing unit to believe that cold calling doesn't work. So the call ends awkwardly, and this feedback loop continues and continues, and we never get anywhere with it, right? We just get more and more stressed when we're essentially forced for our job to do something more and more often. And finally, then we think it's all over. But when we're next in this environment, when we have to make a cold call, the flywheel is actually still spinning. So we've not just got our beliefs and assumptions processing unit shortcutting any sign, any trigger or situation of cold calling straight to an internal alarm. That's not just happening. We've got this internal flywheel of panic spinning up constantly, which then can affect other things in our day as well, because we've got this baseline of stress that if we do have to do another cold call, if we've got to sit there for another 3 or 4 years doing this before we can go from SDR to BDR or whatever the role is, it's just going to get more and more difficult to deal with over time. So essentially, there we go, guys. That is the model of selling anxiety and how the flywheel of panic, well, it gets spinning and doesn't usually stop until you make a conscious effort to make it stop. And it's actually pretty easy to resolve this quickly and succinctly by changing how our beliefs and assumptions processing unit processes the triggers. This is the part that we want to manipulate. This is the part of the process that we want to change. And it's very malleable, right? Just think of the anxiety that you probably had when you first started driving, when you're trying to pull out on busy junctions and busy crossroads, whatever it is, and how you just don't have that anxiety anymore because you've changed your beliefs and assumptions, and the trigger situations have changed as well. So if you want me to do another quick video explaining the exact process of how to break this flywheel and eliminate this feedback loop of doom, leave a comment below. Or alternatively, if you're someone that used to get selling anxiety, but you managed to get through it, explain in the comments below how you did it, and let's kind of work together, guys, and give some feedback for anyone who's feeling this and feel like that it's holding them back right now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.